It's been an interesting week in the Nigerian banking sector, although the interest has been building over time. We started from reports that the First Bank of Nigeria staff is being on the run allegedly for embezzling a huge amount of depositors' funds. And from there, we went to Heritage Bank Nigeria PLC, which had her license revoked by the Central Bank of Nigeria last Monday. It is now being liquidated by the NDIC. From there, we had rumors upon rumors. Are licenses going to be taken or not? The CBN has been doing a lot of clarification, but then came in the Otedala files against Zenith Bank, and that spill is still cooking. The question is, the Central Bank of Nigeria, as the apex regulator of the banking sector, is being supported by other regulators who have overlapping rules. For instance, the SEC. Are they keeping our monies safe? Are your monies out there being properly safeguarded? That will be our focus on this episode of the program. Don't forget, we have our complimentary segment, Simplify This and Markets. My name is Leah Katung-Babatunde, welcoming you this morning to ride along with me. Let's start the business of the day from the trends table.
The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation (NDIC) has assured depositors of the now defunct Heritage Bank that to settle them within 1 week and not 30 days as stipulated by law, and the process has started. Managing Director of the NDIC, Bello Hassan, who disclosed this in Abuja, also informed the press that they would go after debtors owing Heritage Bank about 700 billion naira. He said depositors' funds amounts to about 650 billion naira, and there are 2.3 million depositors of the bank. 99.9% of them have less than 5 million naira as deposits, and only about 4,000 have the guaranteed 5 million naira and above in the bank. The Central Bank of Nigeria had this Monday revoked the operating license of Heritage Bank and appointed the NDIC as liquidator. The Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) has denied allegations suggesting that it plans to revoke the licenses of 3 banks after Heritage Bank PLC. The apex regulator, in a statement by Mrs. Hakama Sidi Ali, Acting Director of Corporate Communications, stated that the claims are baseless and aimed at creating unnecessary panic within the financial sector. It adds that banks have begun submitting implementation plans for the banking sector recapitalization program in compliance with the CBN circular, reviewing the minimum capital requirements for commercial, merchant, and non-interest banks. CBN assured the public that the Nigerian financial system remains robust and resilient. The Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee has proposed a slash in the cost of collection by revenue-generating agencies of government to 1%. Chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, who made the disclosure in Abuja, said the reform is aimed at ensuring that the government agencies focus on their primary functions rather than duplicating tax collection efforts. He said the need to cut the cost of revenue collection to 1% is in line with international best practices.
We are proposing a reduction in the tax burden of low-income earners. First, to increase the exemption threshold from 30,000 naira today to much higher than that. We're waiting for them to finish the conversation on minimum wage. At a minimum, whatever the minimum wage is should be exempted from personal income tax.
African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, and the Africa Petroleum Producers Organization (APPO) have announced the historic signing of the establishment agreement and the charter of the Africa Energy Bank (AEB) at a ceremony held at the Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources of the Arab Republic of Egypt. Professor Benedict Orama, President and Chairman of Board of Directors, Afrexim Bank, and Dr. Umar Farouk Ibrahim, Secretary General of APPO, signed the establishment agreement and the Charter of the Africa Energy Bank on behalf of their respective institutions. The signing ceremony concludes 2 years of negotiations and preparations by both parties, having signed a Memorandum of Understanding in May 2022 towards the establishment of the AEB. The AEB was created to address the impending funding crisis in the African oil and gas industry triggered by the global energy transition. Traditional financiers on whom Africa has relied for decades are withdrawing support, particularly in Africa, citing climate change concerns as the primary reason. South Africa's cable television company Multichoice says it considers the $2.9 billion buyout offer made by the French TV channel Canal Plus Group to be fair and reasonable. According to a Reuters publication, this was revealed by an independent board set up by a South African company on the deal. Canal Plus, a top shareholder in Multichoice, with a 45.2% stake, had on February 2, 2024 reportedly made a proposal to buy the remaining shares at the South African firm at $1.69 billion.
Are your monies safe? Your funds, are they safe with Nigerian banks? Let's find it out in this conversation. Banking supervision primarily seeks to safeguard the stability of the financial system in order to prevail the banking sector from suffering significant shocks or even collapsing given its significance in the economy. To do this, the supervisor focuses on the solvency and conduct of supervised entities. Recent happenings in the Nigerian banking system is leading this conversation. Are the banks losing guard, or is it a case of lack of consequences? How safe are depositors' funds, and do we need to make those funds safer? Joining me for this conversation is Dr. Paul Alaje. He is the chief economist and partner at SPM Professionals. It's nice to have you.
Yeah, thanks so very much for having me.
Thank you. Perhaps we'll start this conversation with you giving us your view of recent happenings in Nigerian banking sector. For one, we've seen the license being revoked. We hear this bank official on the run because he took a lot of money in another commercial bank, and then we're also seeing a kind of leak saying major transactions happened in a bank account, and the company didn't know it happened over a decade. Is it shocking?
Well, to start with, I think the particular bank in question here will be Heritage Bank, and it's to a large extent huge concern to all Nigerians, especially those of us who are economic watchers. I must also say that the news came as a big surprise. Many people were not expecting, even though when we check the health of the bank, in the last 5 years, the bank has not been able to really perform on its task. But I think the former central bank governor said he wouldn't have appetite to shut down a bank under his administration. So I think the new central bank governor felt because this bank is not as healthy as a commercial bank should be, it's better we allow it to not run so that more people don't become at risk. Because eventually this could call an industry risk. And that's an area where we don't want to get into, where many of the banks' licenses, well, they will not be able to meet up with their customers' obligation of maybe cash withdrawal or transfers and so on and so forth. So for Heritage Bank, it's a big surprise. One, because from what we have seen, their asset is not able to settle their liability. And so why are you in business if you are not able to use your asset to settle your liability? I've also seen discrepancies being reported in the media, and I believe that authorities will investigate that, from EFCC to other necessary authorities should investigate it. Because if you allow this to go without finding a solution to it, it might be difficult for people to trust DABs, irrespective of the size. If one had mentioned to us that in the last 10 years, Heritage Bank, a very promising bank, we go on that, then nobody would have been. Again, another thing that is really very disturbing is that transactions have been going on in some accounts, and the company, maybe because of all the money they have, or maybe because they don't carry out regular audits, they are not aware of such transaction in their account. I've also heard how money has been taken from another bank into the bank by one of the directors. But you see, all of these things go on when we have a very big regulatory body that should have looked directly into the books. And I can tell you that central bank have consultants, if you like, or personnel that will check with the banks to see how healthy they are. Banks are also required, according to the CBN, to submit quarterly reports, in most cases, to the commercial bank. Are we saying that nobody was checking into those reports, or those reports were falsified, and central bank do not really have a glimpse at it? Over the years, I can tell you, like about 5 years, that different research organizations have been monitoring the activity of Heritage Bank. Well, a couple of these back, we have heard by the central bank the license eventually have been withdrawn. Of course, I don't think we should have gotten to a point where many people will be worried or concerned about this kind of withdrawal of license. But what I can tell you is that, yes, the withdrawal have taken place. The question many have asked me personally has been, oh, does it mean all our money is gone? And I laughed. I said, well, not under the administration of this NDIC, because NDIC is a very reputable organization. And NDIC, I know, they just review their policy to say that if you have money with DNB, you can get up to 5 million. Whether that will apply to Heritage Bank or not, it will take different. Yeah, so if it applies to Heritage Bank, it's good news, because I can tell you, over 90% of people that have funds in the bank don't even have up to 5 million.
They actually put it at 98
point something, close to 99. So the good news is that over 90%, I don't want to exaggerate, but I can tell you that this is how robust NDIC have made this cover to be. And I think that for such organization, it's a very good development. And I think central bank should also look at how to further ensure that all banks are performing their obligations to NDIC because of issues like this. People will be people. People may be greedy overnight. People may have self-centered interest, selfish interest, like we have seen in the case from the report you have seen thus far, in the case of Heritage Bank. People will be, but we have a regulatory body, the banker to banks, which of course is the central bank in Nigeria, Central Bank of Nigeria. So it's the responsibility of that institution not to wait until a bank gets into a shape that is so bad. And you saw fake news, central bank have withdrawn more licenses from other banks. And I'm happy the Apex Bank came to say that no. Because if you withdraw 2-3 licenses a week, it's an industry. Everybody will be scared. Everybody will be scared. And I'm lending my voice to join central bank to say that, yeah, I stand by central bank. It's a wise thing to even come out to debunk that news that we are not withdrawing licenses from the other 2 banks that people have. I don't want to mention the name of those banks, but we have not. Because when such setting, you need to look at liquidity ratio of bank, what they must have in their book. You also look at cash reserve requirements. They are both high. So bank has slim amount to play with. If everybody now go to the bank at the same time that they want to withdraw, it will cause a collapse in the entire banking system. And that is why central bank needs to manage this. And I'm happy that NDIC was told to quickly start the liquidation process of the bank so that they can do the needful. So I think it's a good development, but we also need, I don't know, maybe that would be at the bankers committee or whatever level it should be at all. We need to become stronger in taking decisions to protect people's interests and people's funds so that it doesn't come across as the banks in the 90s where people leave their money and everything disappeared. So, and I know that with the consolidation that happened in, I think, 2004, 2005, under former Governor Shuludu, now Governor of Anambra State, and the consolidation the new central bank, Alaje Cardoso, is looking at to make banks stronger and even become more robust. I think it would be a good development that we need to look at as a people.
Okay, looking at measures now, I'm happy you're already talking about it. How did we find ourselves in a situation where people actually, I would say, get away with doing these illegalities and no action is being taken about it?
It's a cultural thing. the culture point. Oh, this is Nigeria. Anything goes. I can do anything once you know one big man somewhere. Anything goes. So people, it will start from small things to medium scale things. Now to a bank, a commercial bank, a bank with a commercial license. They can do anything. Don't worry, we are friends with people like the Apex Bank. Those are our regulators. We are fine. But there's a new sheriff in town. And I love an Hausa proverb that says, when music changes, dance must also change. That's a beautiful proverb. So we now have an administrator who is a no-nonsense man. Yemeka Duso. He doesn't want to hear. If you are not working by the books, I ask you to go. So now we have a new administration reviewing the entire banking sector. Maybe one of the directorate has advised him. We don't know. We are not there. But the ability to have the ball, to take critical decisions, to save Nigerians, and in fact, the entire industry is very fine. And also, is it possible we have other banks, we are not sure, that may likely be doing the same thing? Chances are there. But with this example, others will withdraw. Imagine we are taking decision when the first insurgency happened. We have gotten to this one. Oh no, we can manage it. Oh no, they are just boys, young boys. See where you got us to. Would we have been that when people started doing wrong things, we have a strong measure to correct them and say we are correcting you not because we hate you, we are correcting you because we don't want to give wrong signal to the entire world and remaining Nigerians? Maybe we would have. So it went wrong because for me, culture of man no man, culture of, if you have money, just steal enough so that at the end of the day, you can be bailed. At the end of the day, you can be free. At the end of the day, you can bribe your way out. So having this kind of development to a large extent, I think it will be sending signal already to other banks to look at their books very well, because nobody knows when the hammer may go down, right now by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Okay, now that we're talking about the hammer, and you are also pointing out another very vital thing, the attitude, the culture. We have seen, whether we like it or not, a culture that has come to stay. That culture, you can be sleeping in your house and you're getting debited. And somebody in the system will tell you, you compromised your data. And that is why the money has been taken. Should we start doing things differently in that?
Well, I don't think that if I sleep in my house and my money is being debited and somebody say I compromise my data, because I don't have the server. The banks have the server. You cannot debit me when I warehouse my money with you. You could say if you are not competent enough, I don't need to use the banking system. Then you can keep the money when I need to be revert back to a traditional method. Bank must hold responsibility. Very recently, I saw in a situation where it was advertised that we are to pay 0.5% or 0.05% or 0.00, whatever the amount. It just does not make sense. It just does not align. I've checked reports in some other countries. Nobody does that. If we are depositing our funds with you, your job as a bank is safekeeping. It is a primary responsibility of a bank to safely keep funds of depositors. You don't now tell me to come and pay you to keep the same money. It does not apply. Because the argument here is that they want to keep the money is for cyber safety, cyber security. Why do you have a cyberspace if you cannot keep it? I cannot buy you a horse. I cannot have a horse, use my money to buy it, and also use money to tell you to leave the road. It doesn't work. So for me, the culture of passing blame and excuses to customer has been allowed for a long time. And that is why banks can get away with it. Most of our banks are not doing their core responsibility, performing their core responsibility of lending to small businesses and SMEs. So because they can sleep and get the next morning 53 naira from several individuals, 1,000 naira as the case may be, all charges go to the bank, and when they aggregate all of these, they're able to declare billions of naira at the end of the year. How many real businesses have they really touched? The intent of government or central bank is that when we lower interest rate, bank will lend more into the real sector. And when they lend more to the real sector, it's going to lead to economic expansion, economic growth. And in all of these, small businesses, medium-scale businesses will even be positively impacted. But is that what we have seen in the last 2-3 years? The answer is no. We have seen inflation maintain steady rise. We have seen interest rates also have increased over the period of time. Even when the interest rate was low, how many small businesses really could have access to lending with banks? Because one, we don't have a proper credit rating system in the country. Two, because also there's this mutual distrust between borrowers and the lenders, in this case, the bank and the customers. So you will be asked to bring collaterals that are unthinkable just because you want to have access to funds to do business. And this is the reality of the situation. Or should I even talk about interest rates? Eventually, when you get it, you are asked to bring 28, 25, 30%. That is the case of dealing with a proper bank. When you are dealing with money lenders, you might have to bring 120%, or you have to bring 180%. For instance, 10% per month. That's 120%. 20% per month, that's 240%. The question is, which business are we going to do to have this kind of returns in Nigeria? So the culture is wrong, and I think there is need for a realignment and the adjustment of the entire system. I also think that is made possible because the banks are not lending enough to small businesses for them to have some kind of returns. Microfinance bank also have a role to play. Some microfinance bank want to perform operation of a commercial bank. I don't know why they have the competition. Their job is to target micro, mini, and small businesses within their community so that it can grow. But is that what you're saying? Most of the time, not. So they also want to be in the city center to compete with the large businesses. They want to have large funds within their vault so that they can one day, in their mind and their dream, is to become a large bank. All of us cannot run large banks. But the important thing is, with the banks that you are running, can you work within the operations or the dictate or the act of the central bank or the policy that guides the banks? So I think central bank, we need to do more to look at this bank. It's not all the time we say we want to withdraw licenses. In between, some people will lose their job. It might not be their fault. Along the line, people may lose funds, maybe not so much, because even at this, if you have above 5 million naira in Heritage Bank, for instance, the NDIC could only cover for 5 million. So if you have more than that, you have to wait till proper liquidation is done, and the remaining monies will now be shared to those that have more than 5 million. But people that have less than 5 million, of course, based on these new adjustments NDIC have, most of them will be covered.
Okay, now I want to take you still on the health of our banks. We have BVN, we have NIM, we have every other kind of mode of identification. But if we're looking at the health of our banks, how is it so that people with BVN, if we're putting them into use, will scam other Nigerians and they will still retain those accounts because they move the money maybe to another bank, and then what the banks will tell you is, we don't have business, the money is not with us. The best we can do is perhaps to lend the account and wait until something happens. Why are we not seeing proactive actions against people who use their accounts with information that government and regulatory agencies have available at their fingertips and they still go free?
Well, I'll tell you, as recent as yesterday, someone's WhatsApp number was hacked. One of the highly respected women in this country. Right now, she's not in the country. And I just saw a message from her. I have the message on my phone that, please, I'm not around, send, I think, 250,000 or so to this account. And he wrote the number, the person wrote the name that I should credit the account. And I'm like, how did you ask me for this kind of money? So I had a screenshot and sent to her on Instagram. She then responded to me, my account has been, my WhatsApp has been hacked. Imagine I was like, and I sent the number. And the person is not using one of these fintech accounts.
Yes.
He's using a proper bank with a proper account. Now, to corroborate what you've said, If I send the money and they don't use that bank, in fact, as soon as the money gets there, the man will wire it because it's a guy from the name. He will wire it to another bank. Or he will go collect the money and close the account. They may close from another branch. The challenge again is that we don't have enough example. If you are BVN and you are NIM, this is where you can run to. This is where we need the telcos to also trace where the person's phone number is. Before you register another number, you need your NIM again. And we can be on a case for a year or for 2 years so that we can paint an example. It's not enough for us to just show us that, oh, we call these people, they wire money from people's accounts. What happens after that? I've not heard. So we need to have a special court for fraudsters. Look at EFCC. They've done a lot in bringing Yahoo boys to the book. And I've seen a lot of campaign against the FCC. And I've continued to stay with the FCC on this. Because when you leave Nigeria, in all honesty, you go to some countries and you are young. They first perceive you as a fraudster. So until people travel to see how they are treated as fraudsters, they will not appreciate what we are doing locally. In terms of fight against these fraudsters, internet fraudsters, online fraudsters, people defrauding people of their money, not just in Nigeria, they also look out to defraud others. And I must also say that it's not only in Nigeria that this happens, even abroad. There are young people defrauding other nationalities that are not Nigerian, even defrauding Nigerians. But the difference is that there are institutions that are solving the problem. So we also have institutions in Nigeria. I believe that NFIU, more than any other regulatory agency, have a major role to play. Even though NFIU has been a very reserved organization, because that is how it should be, and playing a critical role in ensuring this is done. But to the public, as a consumer of banking service, I think we need to do more in bringing publishing names of those that are defrauding others, with lies, fictitiously ripping people of their sweat and income. It's important. And I also think media we need to support, likes of NFIU and EFCC, in bringing these kind of people to justice, such that if we do, we can paint an example. They can be on pages they can advertise them in the newspaper. This man defrauded XYZ persons, and that is why we're advertising it. Before the world start laughing at us, let's tell the world that we know what our issues are we are solving, and this is how we are solving them. So NFIU, we need to come up with maybe regular publication of people that have been caught in the act. 2, EFCC will not stop what they are doing, but I want to advocate for a special court just for trying fraudsters, especially banking service related fraudsters, internet fraudsters. We have a number of them. And you see, when I say we have a number, it doesn't mean the whole Nigerians are fraudsters. No. I don't think, in my opinion, the percentage among youth, not even among Nigerians, among youth, the percentage of these Yahoo or internet fraudsters or bank service fraudsters is up to 10%. I don't believe so. Because if we say that we have 70 Nigerians young people, I don't think 7 million people are doing this. Maybe 500,000, maybe 100,000, maybe 50,000, maybe 1 million people. So we need, for speed of trial, we need a special, court to do this. And we can add that, we can add drugs to that, so that the court will not just be doing, it can be frauds, internet frauds, and drug abuse. That's what the court will specialize on. And what do you think we have? There'll be speed. There'll be more corrections. Government will instill fear in the hearts of those who are taking advantage of others. And there will now be confidence in the people in the banks that if you do, we are sure you'll be caught. Because already the banks are BVN, and all BVN by now, from what we are told by the central bank, have been linked with people's NIM accounts, NIM numbers. So if the two have been linked, we know we can trace. Now, do we have the institution that can help to trace? Because that comes with some works. So do we have, or we just have data? Data we just put in a bank does not make any sense. If we don't disaggregate this data, if this data is not speaking and a face is showing up behind it, such that we can know what is connected to this data, then there is no point. So to me, to my mind, I think it's important we start using this data and we let this data speak to us so that we can go after those who are doing that. But before all of those, banks have a responsibility because we don't have direct access to any banks do. Their job is to talk to verify you. And I've also had the argument that, oh, if you are defrauded, come to central bank. How many Nigerians will come to central bank? Somebody in Nakamba going to central bank, in Akila, in Sokoto, going. The man is just a farmer. And we have told the man that we want you to be included in the banking service, in the financial sector. And he has agreed. It's 65,000 naira is what he had. 50K is gone. You are not telling him to look for money to go and report at the nearest central bank. And this man will wait for 3 months. It's not working. It's not working. So the man said he did not transfer. I remember I wrote EFCC on one of my clients that I think that should be 2014 or 15 that approached me and said 1 point something million was transferred illegally from his account. And he was naive, he did not know what to do. He was looking for a lawyer and all of those. And I said, well, can I be of help? Don't worry, I'll write EFCC. And he was shocked. Why will you write EFCC? I said, but I will write. And I wrote. And you know the good thing? EFCC responded. I was so happy. EFCC responded and invited. So I took him to EFCC. I said, you're in Nigeria. You have rights. No. I said, forget what you have heard. EFCC have invited, they've written back, and they have called, and they have invited that you come in person to be there. Because I told them I am writing on behalf of a client. And I saw the beginning of the matter. And at the end of the day, I think maybe his father or parents said, no, don't worry, we'll move for another morning, let us go. What does that mean? Even to EFCC, we started the matter, you asked us to stop it. Well, how the matter ended, I didn't know. But mine is, we need to start some things such that we can move our nation forward. Because if you don't get such money back, you are telling the public, you are telling the fraudster one that this is a good business. Keep doing it. You are telling the public that when you are defrauded, chances are low that you get your money back. Why do you think people start digging holes and keeping their money?
Already there's a campaign to take your money out of funds that's above 5 million.
Which is wrong. Where do you keep it? And we need to also correct that. And I'll be willing to volunteer to work with NDIC and Central Bank for free. And I mean for free. To campaign against that campaign. Because you cannot say you take your money out of banking. It has implication on money supply. It has implication on inflation. You know, when people start some campaign, they don't know the economic implication. When money supply is high, Central Bank will say, well, the money supply is high, it will induce inflation, let's start cutting rates. That person that said that is campaigning against him may be out of job, and I will show you how. In the medium term. So Central Bank will say, raise interest rate. When interest rate is raised, what happens to lending rate? It will go up. Businesses will not be as easy as it was before for them to borrow money from the bank. When they don't borrow money to crowd out investment, in fact, rather people invest, they would like to give the money to the bank because of high rates. So when they crowd out investment, what happens to employment? Employment reduces, so there's high unemployment. Because in Phillips curve, if you want to reduce inflation, you are automatically, if you are trying to reduce inflation, you are increasing unemployment. But the only thing you can have is when the two of them grow, inflation grows, unemployment grows at the same time. So that relationship between inflation and unemployment is explained by Phillips in his curve called the Phillips curve. So here is it. Before we look at economy from the surface level, we need to do deeper so that we don't just start a campaign that may come back to hurt us as a people.
Most necessarily, thank you for making time for this conversation.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Do you know it takes on average 70 something days to actually start from packing to exporting that container?
We had 110 textile industries in Nigeria. They crashed.
Any government that does not have sufficient output in terms of export to combat with a global currency, the dollar. It's not just visible.
People keep saying that, oh, FX is interest rates is driving us crazy, but you can't have FX if you don't earn FX.
For you to liberalize, for you to make it willing buyer and willing seller, you must be able to have some buffers.
Manna doesn't fall from heaven. We can't expect external influences to do the magic for us.
Simplify this is next, and from there we go to the market. For more rates from markets across the country, do well to log on to our sister website. It is www.marketnigeriatv.com. We have all the details for you there. We're both here this week, but don't forget to follow us on our various social media platforms. Keep your questions, comments, and suggestions coming. If you have not subscribed to Saban Media Services on YouTube, please do that. And we have all other previous episodes available for you there. Until we come your way again, same time next week, I bid you a beautiful weekend. God bless Nigeria and be safe out there.